Hello and welcome. My name is Mary McElhatton. I am your host for the Permission Mission Show. We are live broadcasting here in Las Vegas every Friday at 11 a.m. I remember the day that I found out I was pregnant. Like everything was just special, exciting, nervous, all that kind of stuff. And then you go through the pregnancy and you go through the cravings and you go through all the changes. And of course, hubby is going through all of this with us, but yet he's not carrying the baby. So, kind of a different perspective when you actually are carrying a child inside of you. I feel sorry for the gentlemen out there who have had to put up with us women carrying a child. And then, you just think the whole thing is just beautiful and you think that everything about it is special and exciting. And it is for the most part. You go to the hospital, you get to have this baby, you find out whether you knew what the sex was or not. In my case, my first child was back in 86. Ultrasounds were not a big thing. I actually was told I was going to have a little girl, and I showed up at the hospital with little girl outfits. And instead, I had a beautiful 8-pound, 9-ounce bouncing baby boy. And of course, dad was super, super excited. Now, everything worked pretty good, the excitement of bringing the baby home, putting him in the car seat, fixing all those things, making sure everything is just perfect and just right. We're getting along for the most part. A couple changes, like just with my mood, my having a baby in me, and then not having a child. It was like my hormones were all over the place. And yes, there were a couple moments that it wasn't so beautiful or so great. I remember the first time when I was getting up in the middle of the night, it was all good and fun for about a week or two. And then I remember saying, hey, it's your turn. And of course, he didn't want it to be his turn. He's like, you're the one who knows everything about this baby. You get up with the baby. And I'm sitting here having this argument in the middle of the night. I don't know if any of you can relate to this. But after all, it is what we signed up for, right? we don't think we don't think of the hard stuff that comes with all of having a child. We think of all the great stuff. Now, for those of you who didn't have any children, you may have had a dog or a cat, right? It's a beautiful thing to get this animal, to love on this animal, but it's a whole other story to train the animal or teach the animal, get up with the animal when they're sick, take them to the vet when they need to be taken to the vet. And it's all these things we just don't know. But after all, which is what the show is here about today, let me read the definition of after all. After all, it's a phrase we use to justify, to reflect, to emphasize what still exists despite our doubts. After all is said and done, we realize also that mortality is here. It's not here to scare us, but it is here to inform us. Now, why do I say that? Because in some cases, again, when we take on these beautiful adventures in life, having children or pets, we know that the inevitable is that sometimes some people don't go home with their babies, or maybe have gone home for a little while. In my mom's case, she had almost 9 beautiful months with my older sister, Sheila. And then something happened suddenly, something such as polio. It had affected her brain and it took her life within a matter of days. Now, we don't expect that, of course, with our dogs. I remember having a little Shih Tzu that her name was Annie, and my kids were so excited, and we did everything right? We got the puppy food, we did the puppy bath, we did the puppy bed, we did everything. And then shortly after we had her, we think that somehow she was bit by a black widow or some kind of spider in the backyard. And all of a sudden we're having to take her to the vet to be put down. Now, I know these aren't the things that people like to talk about, but on the show we do. Because the thing about this whole unknown is what stresses it out. It takes our energy, it takes our focus. We think everything's going to be exciting and wonderful all the time. And I'll tell you, I wish that were the case. But when it's not, what do? What we do is we practice. We practice talking about hard stuff. We practice talking about mortality. So we have a better understanding and we're not so afraid of it that we forget that we can get through these things in life that we signed up for, right? Because if we're born, we're going to pass. If we're going to pass, we might as well live and fill in all those gaps in between with just understanding and support and love and talking about really, really difficult things. I have been stressed out lately by the number of people who have called saying, the world, it's going to come to an end, or the world is crap, or this is, and I get it. I get it. It's tough right now. There are a lot of things that we can question. There are a lot of things that are really taking the thunder out of our step. And I want more rainbows, just like you. I really do. And what I'm finding is talking about mortality and understanding and having some plans in place is bringing some life to my days here with my family. Let me give you an example. So I did do a show on my service. Yes, it's on one of the shows. You can look it up on Permission Mission uh, Facebook or Permission Mission YouTube, also WWDBTV.com. It's in there. I did a show called My Service. I talked about what kind of song I want sang at my service. It's the It's My Turn song. Now, listening to that song after talking about it on the show and sharing it with my children has brought a feeling to me that I didn't expect to feel when I was listening to the words. I really picked that song out because that song was chosen for me. A long time ago, I did a seminar, and that song was something that that song was a song that they chose for me because it was a reminder for me to remind myself to think about myself, because I'd always thought about the kids, or I thought about work, I thought about other people. I was always doing for everybody else. And that was taking some quality of life from me. So a nugget out there. If you're like me, where you were doing for everybody else, but forgetting to put the oxygen mask on yourself, make sure that you signed up for you too, because things can take our quality of life. And I'm here with Permission Mission, practicing to normalize the conversation of mortality so that we have a better quality of life. We're prepared. We have prepared our kids. Like I said, my children, they know the song, they can hear the words. And even listening to it with them today, I can't even explain the feeling I got when I know that day, when I'm not there to listen to them with them to listen to the song, I know that the words are going to be as powerful, if not more powerful. But today they're powerful, us listening to them together. So look up the song. It's My Turn. I saw that it was also sang by Aretha Franklin. And you know what? There's different versions out there. I will decide which version I want by time I get closer. Again, I have it picked out now, but if something changes where I want to change it, I will do that. My children just this morning were sending me a little text over, and I'll read what it said, because I think this is perfect. When I'm talking about what we signed up for being parents, often very difficult with things when they go wrong, but always beautiful when they go right. With having a pet, wonderful in the beginning, not so wonderful when you're having to take them to the vet and put them down. Something happens and they die, but yet we don't talk about it after. So I remember as I was raising my children, I remember not taking the precious moments and enjoying them. I kind of skated through time like a lot of people do. We get caught up with our work. We get caught up with things that we forget that the precious moments are the ones that we take. So it was funny. I'm thinking about the show today, and all of a sudden I get a text from my children, and it's perfect. And I'll share it with you. It's a little thing that they sent over. It says, it says, see my mom with her grandchildren. Very mindful, very patient, very soft spoken, very not the woman that raised me. And I thought that was really appropriate to share today, because I was not that kind and patient and soft spoken, because I was working, trying to be a great mother and trying to be a great wife and trying to be a great person at work. And it was stressful. It was really stressful. I did remind them that I do have a question for God when I get to heaven. And that is, why didn't you give me grandchildren first? I would have loved to practice with grandchildren and maybe been a better parent, but who knows? Maybe after all is said and done, we get these children to practice with, right? They come here, we do our best. They teach us things we don't want to learn. We're trying to teach them things they don't want to learn. And at the end of the day, after all is said and done, I think we've done the best we can with what we have, because we're not rocket science. It's not rocket science when you have children or these lives that you're responsible for. There's a lot involved, and sometimes it goes all well, and I so love that. And sometimes it doesn't, and I so love that today because of the understanding of mortality. It's not sweating the really tough stuff, because I know that there's tougher stuff to come. And I hope that's the message that you're getting here today, is that, we don't have all the answers, but the answer we do have is, when it comes to thinking that it's unknown about mortality, no, we know this. We do know this. That's why we want to have these conversations with our children. That's why we want to have these conversations with our spouses. I want to be able to, at any given time, listen to somebody who's in their grief or preparing things to a day that's coming soon, because that's the reality of it. I also want to share with you what happens when we don't talk about it. I have a 91-year-old woman who is a friend of ours, and I'll tell you, because things weren't discussed, and because there were no plans, and because it's just ignoring the inevitable, and that things are imminent in life, just like death, they're imminent in life. There were no preparations for where she is going to live. This is very painful for a family dealing with somebody who's 91, who's lived a long life, who knows a lot, very intelligent woman, and hats off to her. It's just now it's come to a time where she's not able to be alone, not a lot of resources, and it's difficult. It's really difficult to navigate with somebody who will not listen, and who is not interested in being alone anymore, but also not interested in the change that comes with not being alone. So for any of you out there, again, if you didn't have children and you didn't have animals, I encourage you to go get some friends. Don't be alone at the end. It's not worth it. My heart just breaks for the people who are alone when we live in a world of 8 billion people. The reason that that's happened is because we're not thinking about the end all. We're just thinking about right in the moment. That's fine and great. For some days, it's fine and great, but it also is important to have the after all in place, because it is going to happen. It happened last night. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole of all the things that are going wrong in the world. I'd like to just stay focused on a couple things that are going right. The one thing that I know that is right, if any family has the conversation ahead of time, it's bringing up what's important to them, what's important to the family, where are our belongings going to go? Do we have a trust? I've had people on the show talking about family trust. I've had people on the show just talking about um, again, what their wishes are. I've had my own service. I've reached out to people who have guardianship information. Again, go to the permission or the WWDBTV website and look at those past shows. There will be something in there for you. It is, like I said, it is exhausting to ignore any longer. So let's practice each week embracing what we do know, and that is that life and death are both imminent and inevitable, but also so is success. And I think this is one of those success stories, is when people are brave to face what reality is and to conquer the conversation with confidence, speaking boldly, proudly, and outwardly about mortality and having things in place ahead of time so that people aren't left in the dust, because that's what it feels like. People don't want to talk about it then. If they don't talk about it ahead of time and they don't want to talk about it then how is anything getting accomplished that needs to be accomplished in a timely manner? And also keep that love to the family, that even if we didn't give a lot of it when we were here, we can give a lot of it to them by having the conversation, having plans in place after we've gone. There's no reason to leave things in the dust. I had talked about, like, after all. Okay, so after all is said and done, after all, betrayal happens, right? After all, faithfulness can come into place. After marriage, some marriages last for a lifetime. I love those. And some end in divorce. Intentions were good in the beginning. Something fell short at the end and it had to happen. I'm not for divorce, but hey, I've been there and it's not fun, but it happens. Some people go through lots of education. Some people go through hard knocks. Some people go where they're purchasing a lot, and some people are strapped for money like nobody's business. Fear or fearlessness, love and rejection, travel, seclusion. Again, some people are traveling, some people have seclusion where they've just secured themselves in their home and they're not talking to anybody, but they don't need to be alone. We're not meant to be like that. These are those complete opposites that we think about, that we want, we get involved in, but we never think about the opposite of it. And it's important that we do, because then we can start making some different decisions today. Having income to retirement, homeless to high-rise hotels, suicide to people who are vintage and seniors, prison to paradise. The reason I have these is because I too am looking at them. I'm like, gosh, I only want one most of the time. I don't think about the other. And when the other happens, it hits hard and there's no understanding to it, or we don't talk about it. If we see it ahead of time, we are going to talk about it. If we can see where the road is, going to a dead end each time, where families are destroyed because things weren't prepared or nobody talked about it, or kids are not coming home from school when parents sent them off and said they didn't realize that they were having their final goodbyes to them. It is not okay for us not to talk about this anymore. It's just not okay. And I know that it's not okay for you either. And we can be the voice to keep bringing it up, to keep practicing every week, because after all, we do love to live. We can love to prepare too. And when those two things are taken care of, our children will be taken care of. They will feel the love that we left them. They will not feel just discarded or not thought of or placed all the pressure onto them. They will feel love. They will feel that there was some thought put into things. And when it has nothing like that. It feels very sudden and chaotic and frustrating and angry, lots of anger, and lots of disconnection. Recently, I did a workshop, and one of the questions is when you think about death, what comes up for you? And I heard a lot of different experiences from different people. A lot of it was, when I lost my family member, or a lot of when I think about death, I think of it as being really dark and sad. And when I think about death, it's there's so many different examples of what people think about when they think about the word death. And the one that I had, that I've learned just by doing this show and by getting more comfortable and confident about mortality, is that it's the one thing, the only one thing that grounds each and every one of us and connects us together. And from starting at that point, it does bring some sense of peace. It does bring some sense of, okay, even though I might not like this family member, I'm going to go through what they're going to go through one day. And if we can start a conversation off from there, I know that things are going to get better, and that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and that it's not all doom and gloom. I'm not saying to ignore the things that are going in the world. What I'm really saying is get involved. If you see something out there that you want changed, jump in and change it. Ignoring it or talking about it does absolutely nothing. But if you go after it and you jump in with all arms and legs, even if you don't know how to do it, I promise you, that's where you're supposed to be. And you won't have all the answers, and it will feel scary. This talking about mortality was the scariest thing I've ever taken on. And believe me, there are days I wake up and I just want to just stop. And then I get a call, and it's someone who says, "Gosh, Mary, thank you. I said what I wanted to say to my loved one. I had things in place. I have questions. I'm curious now. I'm not as afraid as I was before. I want my children to know that if I was to go, that they're going to be set up to win." They over trump anything that's hard. They over trump those late nights, getting up night after night after night, walking the baby down the hallway because they're colicky or they're fussy. They trump the times where you have to say goodbye to your children because they're going off to college, or even off to venture into a world that you may not approve of. They trump the love that you have for that animal, and the day that you have to say goodbye. All of it trumps it, because after all, we're all in this together, and we all want to see everybody win. For the most part, there are some people out there that won't. I believe that they watch this show, they will, though, get down to the root of everything, and it's the foundation of mortality that's going to connect everybody to something more than themselves and their problems and their issues that are not going to be fixed overnight, and that take other people to help get through them. So that is the show today, you all. I always want to remind you of the 5-second rule. Every day when I get up, the first thing I do is I favor who I am. I want to make sure that I'm thinking about things that I'm doing to myself, whether it's breathing, stretching, eating a little bit healthier, going to the doctor if I need to go to the doctor. Favor yourself by slowing down your day a little bit. Take some time out for you. The kids will learn how to do that as well, because if we're doing it all for them all the time, they will grow up to do the same thing. They won't understand that they're important too. So favor inside. Each of us have got to be our number one cheerleader. Value. Now, value is obviously whatever value you put on things. I think when I'm talking about value, I'm talking about life. I'm talking about everyone and everything. The next time you sit down in a business deal, just ask the question first before everybody gets involved into signing things. And however you take this, take it how you want it. But are you favoring that person's life? Is this deal or this decision favoring somebody's life? Is it valuing somebody's life? Or is it going to take a life? Or is it going to take them earlier because of stress? Because maybe things are being left out in the documents that shouldn't be left out. I mean, that's the real reality of our world today, right? We think we're signing up for something really good. And at the end of the day, it might not be so good. We are confused today because there is so much information out there. Nobody even really knows where to go to get the right answer. But when you ground yourself, again, get involved with the right people, take the time to ask the question to yourself, if I sign this, is it going to be for my life? Is it going to value my life, the quality of my life? Or am I signing this where it's going to take something from me or take from somebody else? That's as simple as we can change things in a moment, that change for the day, that can change for months, years, and generations. Don't sign anything until you know what you're signing up for. Weigh out both sides. Get involved with where you think the problem is. Start becoming the solution. I love what my mom says. She always says, go to the source. I never really understood that when I was younger, but today I do. And I do go to the source. And that's what actually led me to the permission mission. The source is us. It's not the world that's messed up. It's a lot of us who just are afraid, or we're just doing things out of automatic responses because we want to survive. I do want to survive just like you, but I don't want to do it in an unhealthy way. So remember the 5-second rule. We're going to come back every week and we're going to practice this conversation of mortality. And a lot of you are getting really good at it. And I couldn't be more proud, because that just motivates me more on those days that I wake up thinking, I don't want to do this anymore. Remind me that I do want to do this till the day I die. So let's stay in this together. Let's have some fun. Again, get with your families. If you want to really conquer this conversation, reach out to me on my permissionmission.com. If you want to share your own story, reach out to me on permissionmission.com. I will continue to have workshops. I'll have them out on the dates so that if you want to really show up and take yourself on in your whole mortality and life, that'll be available for you to do that. But until then, just hold on to this. We'll continue to practice together on the permissionmission.com. Enjoy your day. Be safe out there. And just remember the 5-second rule will get you through anything. And be good to yourself. So I'll see you back next week.